difference in preventing overdose death.
Cheryl Hole has worked with the Alliance for almost 26 years.
Dead addicts don't recover.
All right.
She says the resources
Except for I don't
available
have
to
a
help
picture
users
now. I
is
didn't have
simply
a
not
mic
enough.
before,
People won't
and
go
I
to
don't have
treatment
a
now.
picture now.
But when you tell somebody, well, you got to wait
There
a
we
month,
go.
you're going to lose them.
In the neighboring U.S. state of Iowa, opioid-related deaths declined by 33% last year. But Sarah Ziegenhorn, executive director of the Iowa Harm Reduction Coalition, questions whether the decline is because of any new policy shift.
Is it really true that fewer people are dying because there are interventions that are helping people improve their health? Or is it the fact that there are fewer people left available who are using drugs?
And I don't have sound coming. Oh, God. This is such a fucking joke, man. I don't know why it has to be this difficult. Let's see. Window capture. Sound this window. And now we don't have So what's going on? But I can't hear it. Yeah, that's what was wrong. All right. Strange going on in San Dimas. Oh, every week it seems to be a big hassle to get this thing online. So this is Martin Drummond with Progressive News, and I'm live, and I'm finally getting started.
the Woodlawn area in Chicago's South Side. This is the Chicago Recovery Alliance, a street-based harm reduction program that has been in operation since 1992. There, I meet Steve. He's still coming to terms with the death of a friend who had overdosed after taking the synthetic opioid fentanyl the day before.
With my friend, she took a chance and shot the bag of dope, and she started changing. Her health started changing. Then she fell out, passed out. They tried to revive her with the fentanyl. She wouldn't come back. Then they called the ambulance. Like 6 or 7 hours, she was pronounced dead for a fentanyl overdose.
The US opioid crisis has drawn bipartisan support from politicians, with greater funds and programs in place to combat the epidemic. Around 48,000 people lost their lives to opioids in the United States in 2017. Synthetic opioids like fentanyl accounted for 60% of the fatal overdoses. This van dispenses a range of different drug-taking equipment, from different sized needles to snorting kits to crack pipes. But key to stopping opioid-related deaths are these fentanyl test strips as well.
Yeah, but the key to stopping opioid overdoses is to legalize it. I know, it's not good, but you know, most people I've met who were heroin addicts could manage their heroin. And for the ones who couldn't, making it illegal just made it impossible for them to get any kind of treatment. I mean, as soon as you go and check in, the cops know that you're doing drugs and they're going to be all over you, right? And they're going to throw you in jail, throw you in drug court, whatever. I've never personally done heroin, but I smoked some opium once a long time ago. And I got to tell you, I threw it away. Because the guy who sold it to me sold me a piece of like black tar opium. It was about the size of a good sized die, you know, dice. And when I woke up in the morning, we hadn't put a dent in it, and like six people had gotten wasted off of it. I mean, I remember just laughing the whole time. And I just flushed it down the toilet. I mean, if I had smoked all that opium, I know I would have been an addict after that. I mean, I can't quit cigarettes. What am I going to do with opium, right? Holy shit. So, look, we know that the solution is legalizing it. They did it in Denmark. And except for a bunch of idiot conservatives who will never accept the facts in Denmark, everybody, you know, I saw a video talking to people who used to go to the big park in Amsterdam, and how before they legalized it, there were people shooting up on park benches, you know, and people were walking their kids. And they had to see this shit, you know. And the dealing was going on, and it was going on everywhere. I mean, Amsterdam's always had a really liberal kind of outlook, and yeah, the conservatives hate it. But what they really hate is for progressives to show them that they don't know what the fuck they're talking about, and they don't want to know what the fuck is going on. They just want to, I mean, it's always amazed me how, you know, the same people who make it illegal are basically in a roundabout way dealing it. You know, alcohol is, yeah, it's legal, but I'm convinced there's a circular, you know, effect of people in jail and alcohol on the outside. Because they can even make something legal and control how to make money off of it. Anyway, don't listen to me on that. I don't really know, but it's a sense, you know. I get a sense that every time when you're in a conservative society, anything, whether it's legal or illegal, I mean, they have control of all the strings, right? So they can work it to their advantage. And we know from just a myriad of things that they're manipulative, they're greedy, and they're manipulative, and you know that they will find a way, you know, to screw us around. I mean, the fact that they won't do anything about poverty, because they know that poverty leads to drug abuse and alcohol abuse, and I swear that I'm sure that they're selling all the drugs on the big end, you know, or they're laundering the money, or who knows, but I'm sure of it. And it may just be a feeling because, you know, I see a lot of stuff, but I don't really have like secret documents that document it or anything like that. I don't have like, and then again, I see a lot of stuff that digs up a lot of stuff. I mean, look at Mitch McConnell. Okay, he's married to, I think her name is Elaine Chao, and her father owns a shipping company, and it's been, I know at least once they caught one of his ships with, I don't know, heroin or cocaine. You tell me. And we'll never find out about all the shit that they are doing. They'll always blame it on, you know, a couple of sailors on the ship, and nothing ever happens to the owner. You know, he's the owner of the ship. How can he not be at all culpable for the fact that there's drugs on his ship? And I think this is despicable. Let's have a look at this.
Correct.
Past the secure gates of the Hampden County Jail in western Massachusetts, Sheriff Nick Kochi is taking us to meet incarcerated men who haven't necessarily committed a crime.
These are all people that are at a point in their life where forced treatment and necessary immediate treatment was called for.
The sheriff runs a program for men who've been civilly committed for substance abuse treatment under a Massachusetts law called Section 35.
Here, for the first, say, 4 or 5 weeks, you can't go anywhere. You're here.
Our first stop is a daily mindfulness meditation class.
Someone watching this, they're literally going to hear the new age music, and they're going to see guys on floor mats, deep breathing, and they're going to say, what's going on with the sheriff? He's supposed to be making
tough
sure.
guy.
Yeah.
Well, I've always said this. A fair county sheriff is giving them the resources and the tools to address those issues and to go back into the community and be successful. We're saying there's a better life, and we're saying we can help you get there.
Under Section 35, a family member, police officer, or doctor can petition a court to commit an individual. That is, hold them involuntarily if that person has an alcohol or substance abuse problem and is a risk of serious harm to themselves or others. Similar to involuntary commitment for mental illness, after an evaluation by a clinician, a judge can section a person, as the process is known, for up to 90 days. For women, that means receiving treatment in a civil facility, but for most men, it means getting treatment in a jail.
It's a tool to be used as a last resort. We would love for people to put their hand up and say, I have an addiction issue and I need help, and I'm willing to go get that help, but that's not the case all the time. So it's important that the family members have an option that they can help.
I'm sorry, but I have to say it. I mean, this guy's a big fat troll, and he may be able to pass himself off a little bit as some kind of nice guy, but it's bullshit.
Bring their loved one and actually get them the help that they need, whether they're ready for it, prepared for it, or want it or not.
The law has been on the books since 1970, but the number of people committed has gone up nearly 66% in the past 10 years, thanks to the opioid crisis.
The noise level's down, there's not a lot of commotion.
In Kochi's program, the men are housed in a unit that's isolated from those who are criminally incarcerated. The men are called clients rather than inmates or prisoners. There's 24/7 medical treatment available, including drugs like methadone, buprenorphine, and now
You can call it what you want, but that looks just like the jail they put me in.
naltrexone, all of which are FDA approved to treat opioid addiction. And there's access to addiction counselors and daily group therapy. The rooms are jail cells, but Sheriff Kochi says the doors are not locked, and the men here aren't confined to them.
So the days are very structured, but they're not structured to where we force anyone to do anything.
And let me tell you, this is all set up. I guarantee you they had plenty of warning because they know they control who goes in and out. So they decided this was their PR moment. And the rooms don't look anything like that. You know, they set it up to look real nice. It's bullshit.
You have to voluntarily get up and go to class. Yeah.
There are even therapy dogs.
How you feel?
Nervous, but good. I'm ready.
Was it worthwhile to be here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
After several weeks at the unit in the jail, many men, quote, stepped down to a facility about 20 minutes away in Springfield. Located in a renovated nursing home, it has fewer restrictions and is more like a dorm. The emphasis remains on recovery.
It's getting in touch with your inner peace, the way we were hitting the drums. We have to find that because it's not the drink and the drug. It's enjoying life without it.
39-year-old Antoine Diaz has struggled with addiction for more than a decade. He lost his brother to a heroin overdose last year.
This time when I relapsed, my twin brother was dead. And that's when it's easier to die. It really is. People are not really suicidal, but the pain and the suffering becomes overbearing that they just want to shoot it away. And next you know, it could be a bad batch and you're gone. And I experienced that this time. I was dead for 3.5 minutes. No heartbeat, no nothing.
After being revived, Diaz was sectioned by his family.
Then they came and said, you're getting sectioned. I flipped out. I hated my wife. I hated everybody. But she was right. I needed to be removed. That's what a section is. You need to be removed from society.
Since the program began last May, more than 1,000 people have gone through the Section 35 program in Hampden County, and the Sheriff's Department says fewer than 5% have been sectioned again. But it doesn't track relapses that don't result in another civil commitment.
We're not telling you that we have a magic wand and we can wave it and we can cure people, because there is no cure. We're engaged every day trying to be part of the solution in taking another chunk out of this ravaging, ugly disease of opioid addiction.
And when he gets out, the other guy, the black guy, he's going to be right back in the same bullshit situation. And that's the problem. That's the real problem. And they're not addressing that. They don't want to address that.
Antoine Diaz credits the approach of the Hampden County Sheriff with helping him get to this point.
I'm going to be
How scripted is this?
honest with you. I didn't like Kochi. Right, for sheriff, I had another guy I liked. But I swear to God to you, I swear to you, his message and his way for recovery is passionate, real. The programming, everything, it's progressive. It's different.
Over here we have another classroom area.
To pay for the program's first year, Kochi reallocated nearly $3 million from the existing Sheriff's Department budget. And in July, the Massachusetts legislature earmarked an additional $1 million for the program.
Now, $1 million is a drop in the hat, but it was a major move in the right direction, especially with all the people that are criticizing the program.
Why would you have a system where instead of using healthcare settings to treat a disease, you put that money into prisons?
Bonnie Teneriello is one of those critics. She's a staff attorney at Prisoners Legal Services of Massachusetts, a nonprofit group that represents incarcerated people.
It may be a nicer environment than an ordinary prison setting, but it's still a prison, and you're still telling people you belong in jail. There's already enough stigma around addiction that for us to say it's okay to put people with addiction in jail just furthers that stigma, furthers a belief in our communities that these people are bad. And that's going to stop people from getting treatment.
Teneriello.
So she's not in jail. So she doesn't have to follow their rules, she's telling the truth.
Is suing the state to end the use of jails for treatment on behalf of 10 men who have been sectioned at a facility in Plymouth called the Massachusetts Alcohol and Substance Abuse Center, or MASAC. The suit alleges abusive behavior by corrections officers, minimal substance abuse treatment, and
And I can tell you that, okay, while, you know, there's some kind of nice guys, but you have to bring it out in them. When I was in jail for something I didn't do, I was a political prisoner is what I was. There was one of the guys, and he acted tough all the time, just like most of them did. But as he walked by my bunk after checking for something, I said to him, you know, you can leave whenever you want. And he turns around and goes, what? And I go, you're not locked in here like the rest of us. You can go anytime you want. And he said, well, you know, there's good benefits, get paid pretty well. And I said, oh, okay. Well, the next night, for some reason, he left the TV on all night. And that's not allowed, really, although it's up to their discretion. But it never happens. As a matter of fact, they turn off the TV to punish people. You know, there's some things in jail that you get that they use, you know, to keep control of everybody. People go apeshit when the TV's not on, or if the remote's removed and they can only watch one channel or whatever. So in the morning I said, why is the TV still on? And somebody said, oh, well, he quit. And he came in while you were asleep and he said, I'm going to leave the TV on all night because this is my last night here. So, you know, they are human beings, and regardless of how they're trained to be assholes, you can get through to them sometimes. But they are abusive. And they come in, they make friends with the big drug dealers, because on the outside, I think most of them are some of the biggest criminals. And they tend to like to make friends with the biggest criminals. The biggest criminal in my cell was a big black drug dealer who still had all his money on the outside and everything. And you know, there's this big fat cop who used to come in and sit around and talk to him all day long. And it used to be kind of annoying because it was obvious he didn't give a shit about the rest of us. But, oh, this, you know, main drug dealer who would eventually get out, and in the same neighborhood, you know, they're in the same neighborhood. Oh, he really cared about making friends with him.
Overall, a traumatizing experience for people sectioned there.
If you put people in jail, they're going to act like they're in jail, and a lot of people did.
37-year-old Joel Kergaravat is not one of the plaintiffs in the lawsuit, but he spent several weeks in MASAC. He was sectioned by his family last June after struggling with opioid addiction.
The Department of Corrections is equipped to handle prisoners. They're not equipped to handle mentally ill or sick people. That was evidenced by the fact that they would, you know, refer to us as junkies and, you know, pieces of shit, and it's not their arena.
Kergaravat has been sober for about a year, but he says that's in spite of his experience at MASAC, not because of it.
There's no treatment, nothing I would consider treatment there. It felt like having gone to jail for a period of time for a crime I didn't commit.
Citing the pending litigation, the Massachusetts Department of Correction, which operates MASAC, declined an interview with PBS NewsHour Weekend. But in court filings, the state denied the suit's allegations and strongly rejects, as both a factual matter and a legal matter, the suggestion that the commitment of Section 35 patients to its facilities is equivalent to incarceration or imprisonment. The Hampden County Sheriff's Department is not specifically named as a defendant, but Bonnie Teneriello says the lawsuit aims to end the use of jails for all Section 35 commitments across the state. She says that would simply put men and women in the state on equal ground. Remember, women who are sectioned are treated only in civil settings. That's because in 2016, the Massachusetts legislature explicitly changed the law. And there's now pending legislation that would do the same for men. In September, a joint committee of state legislators held a hearing on this issue.
We are the only state in the nation that sends people with addictions for involuntary treatment to a prison facility. This is what we need to change and what we want to change.
And in July, a state commission also recommended that Massachusetts end the practice.
When people point at us and say, yeah, it shouldn't happen there, well, where else is it going to happen? There was not one bed for these type of men in Western Massachusetts till we opened this program a year ago. And now they want to tell me, well, you shouldn't be doing it? Hey, how about a phone call and say thank you? I'll take those calls all day long.
Antoine Diaz.
Because if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I mean, they just want to throw everybody in jail. And, you know, it's kind of like in war, you know, kill everybody and let God sort it out.
Says the setting in a criminal justice facility is not what makes being sectioned hard.
It's not jail, you're civil. It doesn't matter where they house you at. In reality, being here, people don't want to be left alone. Being here is hard for me. You know why? Because I have to be left with me. And I'm the problem. And it's uncomfortable. But it teaches me how to grow. You know? It did not feel like jail, and I did a jail bid.
Instead of taking shots at us, come on down and see it for yourself.
Sheriff Kochi says he's open to having his program regular.
Yeah, bullshit. You can't go to a jail. You can't get in. You can't even get to see a prisoner unless he was smart enough to put your name on his list of people who will be visiting him. I mean, there's so much wrong with jails. Now, I'll tell you a good thing about jail. You know, if you're super poor, the only bad part about it is that you're locked up. Because they do your laundry. They bring you your meals 3 times a day. But they also try and take advantage of everybody with what's called cold cart, hot cart, commissary. And they sell you at enormously inflated prices pizza, soft drinks, you know, a bunch of stuff. But that creates a huge problem in the prison, because then people have things that other people don't have, and you start getting people like arguing and fighting over trading stuff and everything. I mean, I saw most of the fights and the arguments that I saw in jail were over, like, somebody would say, hey, you've got cold cart today, grab me a Pepsi and this and that, and then the other guy wouldn't, you know, he'd do it, and then they'd get into a big argument later about who owed each other what. Generally speaking, that doesn't happen with prison food. I mean, we used to play Texas Hold'em for cakes, and I always thought the cakes were the nastiest part of the food, but that's what they would play for. And there was rumors of lots of other gambling going on that really was above and beyond that. But
regulated by civil agencies in the state, including the Department of Public Health. But in the meantime, he says, the stakes could not be higher.
Man, they make that look good, don't they? Except for in my pod of 12 guys, we had one shower for all 12 of us, and it was nasty. Used to stink all the time.
Take my 120 beds away. Then what? How many funerals are we going to? How many family members have got to bury a loved one?
Yeah, like you're putting a dent in that. I would be interested in finding out why he really wants the program, maybe to make himself look good, maybe because if he can get it going, he can get more money for the, you know.
I'm not going to be on that side of the coin.
But that's a false choice. You need a civilian setting for these people. We're not saying take the treatment away. What we want is a commitment to fund and make available treatment in healthcare settings where it belongs.
Teneriello supports the pending state legislation to make that happen. But Sheriff Kochi argues that his program should be allowed to continue, even if others in the state are not.
I would ask, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, please. If we're doing it right, acknowledge that, carve us out, allow us to do what we're doing.
For now, the sheriff will...
Really don't want to listen to this guy anymore. Let's see what else I got.
This is Democracy Now! I'm Amy Goodman.
Now this is the root cause of addiction and theft. People who steal and everything.
And as we turn to the second part of our special coverage of the homelessness crisis in California, amid skyrocketing housing prices and rising inequality, the number of unhoused people across America's richest state is booming. Homelessness in San Francisco has spiked at least 30% since 2017. This, according to the San Francisco Chronicle. In Oakland, it's grown by nearly 50% as more people have been forced into the streets. Encampments have popped up from Los Angeles to the Bay Area and other cities centers across the state. But while advocates push for more affordable housing solutions, they say city governments have been cracking down on unhoused people instead, with increased...
You know, fuck that. Make housing free. Basic housing. So people who don't want to buy a house or rent, and especially renters. I mean, I've been living with rent all my life, and you know what? I think it's totally unfair. You know, let people pay for other things. Let them pay for fancy sport cars. Give people like a little electric car to drive around. But make them pay for a Camaro or a Corvette or whatever. And same with houses, you know. Give them like a one-room minimal apartment with a bathroom and, you know, a place to maybe do some work, like a little workroom or something, and maybe a garage, and give them that option. You know, there's plenty of other ways to make money off of people than the things that they need. So, you know, I think Bernie's going to go a long ways in that direction, but I think everything that a person needs should be free. I mean, we just need to modify the economy. People should work because of pride, you know, but they lose all pride in this system. You know, they hate the system because it sucks. And everybody goes through that at least once in their life, right? And maybe several times in their life. I know it's happened to me many times, at least 4 or 5. Out on the street in Houston, living in my car in California, right where they're around where they're talking about. You know, I had a this is back in the 70s, I paid $235 for a garage apartment. It was a tiny little room. My mom said when she came to visit, she had to sleep with her head in the oven. It's just, I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Increasingly punitive measures.
And you know, if the government had like housing units scattered all over the place where you could just go there, you know, and stay, it would change all of this.
That criminalize homelessness. In San Francisco, advocates say police sweeps of their belongings happen nearly every day. Well, we recently returned from Democracy Now! Democracy Now! Recently returned from San Francisco to speak with unhoused people and their advocates about conditions there. We first met Kelly Cutler, a volunteer with the Coalition on Homelessness, under the freeway just outside of the downtown San Francisco area where a number of unhoused people had set up tents and makeshift shelters.
My name is Kelly Cutler, and we are down on Division, and this is an area where a couple years ago we had a bunch of encampments, over 300 within a few block radius.
And can you talk about who lives under the freeway here? Tell us the story of Neil.
There was this gentleman, a 70-year-old disabled veteran named Neil Taylor, and I used to come down and see him every time I would go out on outreach. He had been out here for a few years, and because he said that with his wife dying that he could no longer live in the house where she was, and he ended up dying in his tent right under the freeway over there. He was a veteran and was working on getting into housing, but it didn't come soon enough. And there was one time that he was in the emergency room, and the city was coming through and doing a sweep. And I tried to stop him. I said, "This is Neil's stuff, at least bag and tag." And they said no, and they threw all of his belongings from his music that he wrote to his walker, and they threw it into a crusher truck and demolished it.
How typical is this?
This happens every day. If you walk around, it's not one person here or there that will share this kind of experience. It's everyone.
Describe what happens, what gets taken.
The number one thing that the city tends to target are tents, because they focus on tents and visible homelessness. The mayor had put out a press release earlier this year saying that since she became mayor that the tent numbers have decreased, I think it was 34%. And we said, well, does that mean that there's that many more resources that were available? Like, what happened? What the reality is that they're going through and they're taking people's tents and as well as the rest of their belongings. They will give them a misdemeanor, 647E for illegal lodging, and take their tent as evidence and leave them there.
And then what happens when they're scattered, when the encampments are broken down by the authorities? Where do they go?
Well, there isn't really anywhere to go, so people will oftentimes go to the next block, or if they're pushed out even further, they will just scatter to wherever they can be where they're not going to be harassed. People experiencing homelessness are often the victims of violence and targeted. It's a regular occurrence that we hear about. And so by breaking up community and support, just it would be the same for house people, where if you're breaking up protection and safety, it's people are going to get hurt.
We've come under the highway and have come up to a kind of makeshift cardboard shelter. A man has emerged from it. His name is Moon, so we're going to talk to him right now. This is your cardboard shelter?
Yeah, this is my cardboard shelter. Yes, it is.
How long have you been here?
In this particular spot?
Yeah.
Maybe a month or two. It's about the longest I've been in one spot, a long time out here. So.
And you built this?
Yeah. This isn't the first one I've built. I've actually built about 4 of them, 5 of them.
Can you talk about living out here?
And, living in the Bay Area, which is where they're at, San Francisco, it doesn't really get very cold for any period of time or very hot. It doesn't rain a lot. And so these people can kind of get away with this. But I imagine elsewhere it's really bad.
Here under the freeway. Why are you here?
I found myself in a couple years ago, in an unfortunate situation, and I ended up on the street. So I kind of flocked to this group of people and found a little bit of safety net here with them, and because it's the only way to really live out here, and then kind of security. And I just been kind of going day by day to get everything. It's extremely difficult living on the streets, being homeless, especially I don't know if it's different elsewhere, but here it is. So I'm just at the moment trying to get things together so I get off the streets.
Where were you born?
I was born here. It's very odd being homeless in the city you were born in.
How long have you been homeless?
About 2 years.
do you see yourself getting out of this situation? What could help you get out?
I do see myself getting out of the situation. It's once you get into the situation, it's extremely difficult to get out. It's kind of like a pit trap. They'll wake you up at 4:30 in the morning every morning for 2 weeks.
Who's they? The police?
The police, DPW. People that work for the city, they'll wake you up every morning for 4:30 in the morning, and if you don't move fast enough, they'll take your things, and then you have to get your things all over again.
Can you get them back?
No, you can't. They say you can, but you can't. I have several friends. All of my friends out here have tried to go get their things back, and never, ever have I seen anybody successful.
What kind of services are provided for you to help you get out of this situation?
Well, they supposedly have navigation out here, but that they can take you and give you last time they offered me a 7-day stay, which the 7-day stay doesn't help me at all.
In a shelter?
In a shelter, because then I'll just back out here and on the street.
Cooper, as we tour around this freeway system and the people who are living below, you're called the people's medic. You are a firefighter, disabled, you're in the streets. Talk about the conditions and the medical condition of people on the streets.
There's a lot of issues out here with a lot of injuries due to just being out on the street in general, as well as fights and things like that. But the basic, all in all, is when the cops do these sweeps, people get stressed out. Because you have to get your stuff moved within an hour or less than that, and so people end up hurting themselves, breaking fingers, arms. There's been 2 broken legs, splitting their head open, just trying to get this stuff quickly so they don't get arrested. So the stress that these sweeps cause people injuries like that, but also that we don't have running water out here. So people that do use that inject drugs and they're all clean. They use clean needles, majority of them. But bacteria is a killer of many, and there's a lot of abscesses out here due to bacteria and things getting on because people can't keep their hands clean. There's nowhere, restaurants or places will not allow people that are homeless in to use the restroom to even wash their hands. So that causes issues, because people can't be clean, and when they're not clean, infections and things are past person to person. So it's I'm seeing a lot of that abscesses, as well as a lot of broken bones due to having to move within minutes or within less than a half hour. So it's increased, and just even in the last year and a half, I've noticed more injuries like that.
Will people go to emergency rooms?
No, they usually won't, just because they're looked down on by hospital staff. They're treated differently, and they don't want to deal with being looked at like that. Because the one thing I hear constantly out here on the street is it like, I wish people would stop looking at me like that. I wish they would stop, treating me like that. I'm a human. I'm a person. I have feelings, and so, and that's a lot of people don't usually say that. We have a tough skin out here. We have to. So when we go to ask for help, we're dire need of help. And so when someone goes to the hospital and they get treated poorly, they're more than likely not going to return. And also the sheriffs.
Okay. What I'd like to address here is the redefining of wealth. Okay, when you go to a city that you haven't been to, okay, and you're a tourist, right? And you're pretty much confined to a part of the city where they make it, there's no homeless people. There's, that's what they're doing here. They're moving people out of the way of, out of the public eye. But let's define wealth for a country, right? Isn't what you consider the poorest countries where you go and see a lot of poverty? Where it's so bad that you just can't avoid seeing it, even though you're rich or well-to-do or whatever. I mean, to me, I think of a country as being rich if they're able to set it up so that you don't ever see any of the poverty. Because I don't think there's a lot of countries where there isn't poverty. Now, China is supposed to end poverty by 2020. So maybe after that you could go to China and, you know, they have a lot of places just like any other country that are way, way out of the way. But I suppose they're claiming they're going to fix that. Because generally people way, way out of the way, they're the ones who suffer from poverty. But this is going on just in the cities, so let's just stick to the cities. So you go to a city, you see a lot of rundown houses. If for some reason you were to go into them, you'd be like, you know, God, that's a piece of shit old stove, isn't it? Got an air conditioner in the window. You know, for a lot of Americans, they don't ever even see that their whole lives. You know, they're always living in subdivisions. And that percentage of people tend to be the problem. Because they really don't think of America as having all this. They don't want to know, you know. They think that that's a product of their having not to live like that. But to me, wealth would be a city where there wasn't anybody living like that. That would be really, to me, wealth. I mean, my idea of wealth isn't some guy's got a big yacht, you know, some guy's got a mansion. I mean, obviously, if we could all live in housing developments and or in, you know, subdivisions with brand new ball homes, U.S. homes, and all that kind of stuff, that would be ideal. But where do you see that happening? I mean, I live in probably one of the highest standard of living cities in the United States, but there's still parts of town. And the blacks all live in these, like, certain apartment complex, Section 8 apartment complexes, and poor white people live in them. And of course, that's all happened in the last 30 years. Didn't used to see very many white people in a black area. Now there's a lot more of them. And maybe that's why more people are demanding change, because white people are getting stuck in the same system, and it just goes round and round and round. Maybe they get out for a while and then they get back in, and da-da-da. And in those same areas of town, there's a lot of drug abuse, prostitution, you know, whatever people have to do to make money. So I don't see wealth and you know what? I don't see wealth because I'm not rich. So, I mean, I used to be, or at least I used to hang with the rich. And, you know, I've been on Khashoggi's yacht, went from San Francisco to LA and went to Disneyland. I've been to their houses. I've been to, you know, hung around the Shamoons and in Lebanon and, you know, lots of stuff. So, you know, I've seen it. And I've seen poverty. Maybe not been as directly affected as the people who were there, you know. But I've seen it, so I've seen both sides.
You know, they reside there pretty much, and they run people's names when you come in with an injury. They want to know why you have that. Why did you get stabbed or whatever. If you have a warrant or something, they're going to arrest you. And then now, you know, that's going to keep them away from healthcare all in all. So people come and I was dubbed a street medic by people out here, and people come and get me all hours of the night, day, whatever, and I grab my medical bag and I go to wherever they are, because I'm glad that they are asking for my help, because I give it to them whenever they need it.
Are you still living on the streets?
Yeah.
Do you foresee a time when you won't be on the streets?
I would love to be inside. That's the one thing that it's been a long time since I've been inside, and I really, I mean, it's not my choice to be out here, and it's hard to be out here, and it takes a lot out on you being out here, having to watch your back constantly. I'm very well respected out here, so I don't have a problem, but I'm getting kind of tired. I would like to be inside. I'm sick of being cold. I'm sick of being wet. I'm sick of wondering if my house is going to be there when I get home. I want to live a little normal life again, and hopefully soon. Hopefully.
What would help you get there?
Housing. Housing. I live on a small disability check, and I can't save up enough to even get first class and deposit. And I would love to just have a place I could vacuum a floor or do dishes.
And yet, if he got enough money for rent, then he'd have no money, because it would all be spent on rent, right? Look, this is a disgrace, right? It's an absolute disgrace. I mean, to me, I'm living in the poorest country in the world, because I am always going to be focused on the poverty. I'm not looking at, the people in my neighborhood or the people across the freeway from me who have big mansions and, go spend the weekends on the lake somewhere or whatever they do for fun, right? All the happy, smiling people. And I think I'm right. I think that it's great that I've got a conscience. Now, I may not be able to do anything about it, right? I don't have the resources. I get $245 a month. It's just lucky I've got a place to live, and I manage, on that $245 a month to pay for gas when I can borrow a car or whatever. Keep my computer running. That's about all that I'm really able to do outside of, look at me here. I keep myself warm with a hairdryer. When it's cold like this, I get under the covers. And I'm proud of how well I take care of myself on my income. And I'm proud not to have a huge income and manage to survive, because of people like this who have it much worse, and I just feel like I ought to share their pain. I don't feel like I'm entitled to share rich people's happiness when there's people like this who are in pain. All I'm asking for them is small little units that give them everything they need, and transportation and electricity. And yeah, I think that you have to give them some kind of device with an internet connection. And I don't think a phone is good enough. Maybe a tablet would be good enough. But really, a person needs a PC. But a PC isn't portable, so maybe the tablet. Anyway, you guys work that out, what a person needs. And, I think that we need to work it out to where everybody uses all the great new ideas, right? So when it's freezing cold and I have to go jogging, I take a 2-liter bottle and I cut out a mask for myself, you know, all the great ideas on the internet and all the recycling and everything. I think that people, you know, until we get things fixed up, I think everybody's going to learn to have to live like that. I mean, everybody is us, right? All the people who are going to have to share that little bit. Now, once we get change, it's not going to be like this. I don't believe it's going to be like this. And after a while, I think we're going to be able to start reaching out to the world, and we'll be their inspiration, you know? And we'll be able to show them how to move into the future, because a lot of poverty comes from, around the world, comes from, you know, just a total lack of development. Instead, what does our rich corporate government oligarchy do? They feed off of this. You know, they have all these programs where they feed off of the poverty all around the world, and the poverty never gets smaller. And, you know, I know that Lee Camp agrees with me, because I saw him talk about it today, and I don't know.
So there was a new poll.
I don't know if I can find it. But anyway, he talked about how people have to stop having babies. You know, like he said, people have 8 kids, 14 kids. I mean, that's part of the problem, like it or not. It's not really a part of the problem, because the rich, well, it is and it isn't. But if the rich would get their boot off our neck, maybe we could deal with as many people as there are right now. And after we dealt with the people who are here, then maybe they would naturally stop having babies. Because, I mean, I think from what I've seen, rich people have lots of babies, and really poor people, really suffering people, you know, just pop them out. And somehow our welfare system promotes that, because the more kids you have as a single mother, the more money you get for those kids. So there's that, you know. I just flipped over to here, and let's go ahead and look at this, because I'm tired of talking about poor people. Let's talk about how they're trying to keep us poor.
There was a CNN University of New Hampshire poll, and they found out, well, here's the results. Bernie Sanders is at 20.
And I'm sure you've seen this, because I've been plastering it all over Facebook and all my friends and everything.
21% in New Hampshire. Elizabeth Warren's at 18%.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And Joe Biden's at 15%. So look at that. Look at that. Good. So Ryan Grimm caught this. Ryan Grimm, he said CNN has 5 articles up about its New Hampshire poll that shows Sanders in front, yet none of the articles say that in the headline. Here's one. Early state primary voters much more undecided than that. What the F? Here's another one. This is historically unprecedented New Hampshire mess. Instead of Bernie's leading, this is what they say. And there's another one. Sanders and Warren sit atop in New Hampshire, but there's no clear frontrunner. Buttigieg in 4th, but a strong 4th.
Oh my God. 4th place is so fucking strong, Jimmy. That's why the Olympics don't give it a medal, because it's so fucking strong. God, remember the team in the NFL last year that came in 4th place? The parade they had?
Yeah.
It was fucking amazing.
It was a strong parade.
Oh, such a strong parade. Strong 4th.
I love what Cody Johnson says. He says, when Bernie wins, the headline will be Buttigieg almost wins. And guess what, though? When CNN reported this on their own network, they flipped the numbers for Elizabeth Warren and Bernie. Look, they did it. They said Elizabeth Warren has 21, and can you believe they did that? They did that. Here, and this
Can
guy
you
says,
believe that they lied?
This guy said it's getting a little ridiculous already. Iowa poll, Biden and Buttigieg within striking distance of Warren. What about fucking Sanders? They won't ever mention that. Oh my God. And by the way, and they still have it. All right. Yeah, see, that there's such a good news organization that it misrepresents their own poll. Their own poll, they get it wrong. I love that. Hey, by the way, oopsie, just a simple error that matches the biases and agenda of the corporate class. Just a mistake. Isn't it funny that the mistakes always go one way, but never the other way? The mistake is always in favor of the establishment, never in favor of the progressive. Isn't that... Okay. Hey, by the way, what are they going to do next with their next poll? They're going to have Steve Harvey read the next poll? Is that what they're going to do?
Klobuchar within staple throwing distance of Warren.
I bet you CNN would be a little embarrassed about this unless CNN is trying to falsely shape public opinion. I don't know if would they try? Maybe. By the way, I love this. This is The Onion put this out. They go, MSNBC poll finds support for Bernie Sanders has plummeted 2 points up.
Next live, Jimmy Dore.
And really, you know, a story like this and anything about mainstream media is just, you know, comedy. A comedian is the totally appropriate place for it to be because it's so bad, right? The lamestream media is so bad and so manipulative and so sneaky that all you can do is laugh about it, right? I mean, it's like your uncle who comes to Thanksgiving and has to say something that, you know, is utterly cringeworthy. After years of this, all you can do is laugh about it, right? Unfortunately, the mainstream media is doing things politically to our country that are killing people. And, you know, I was talking earlier about how I can't do anything about poverty or anything like that. And that's because what I was thinking about, and I forgot to say, was that since people like us, you know, we don't have time to be highly political, to run for office or anything like that, or do anything about the massive problems of this country. So our only way out is politically. So we're activists and we network and we do little shows on the internet like this, and we hope that the government will do what it's supposed to do, and that's taking care of problems that are bigger than us, right? That's like taking care of problems where I can't go out and cook every poor person in the United States a meal tomorrow. So we're hoping the government will step in and do something about it, because we do absolutely insist that something be done about it. We're all part of a club. It's called the United States of America. And, you know, we're very, very disappointed. You know, and Trump is just like icing on the cake, right? That's why I don't even talk about Trump. Because before we get to Trump, we got to get through the establishment Democrats. You know, the Nancy Pelosi's, and fortunately, so far, we haven't had to worry about Hillary Clinton. But, you know, there's lots of them, and there's lots of progressives parading around as when they're really establishment Democrats. I mean, they may say this, that they're not, and they may say they're going to do all kinds of wonderful things, and I think particularly about you know, well, all of them, but Warren and Pete Buttigieg. But let me tell you something. How many times do I have to get kicked in the teeth before I start saying no when I smell establishment? You know, there's lots of indicators, but I can just smell them. You know, like Bill Murray said when he was playing, what's his name? Hunter S. Thompson. That, do you smell bacon? I smell bacon. You know, referring to a narc, a cop.
Welcome to the Police Accountability Report. I want you to know that if you have evidence of police misconduct, please email it privately to us at par@therealnews.com. And please like, share, and comment on our video. You know I read your comments, and I appreciate them. You can follow the Police Accountability Report on Facebook or Instagram, or at Eyes on Police at Twitter. And of course, you can follow me directly at Tejas Baltimore on Facebook and Twitter. And I want to thank you for joining us for the first season of the Police Accountability Report. We are taking a short break, but we will be back with a new show premiering on YouTube December 5th. Thank you, James. But please keep sending in your tips. We will still be reading them, and we still need them. And I want to give a quick shout out to Noli D, who's been a good friend to the show. So as we've said before, and we will say again, the point of the show is to hold the politically powerful institution of policing accountable. Part of that process is examining the political forces that empower policing in a country inundated with it. Case in point is the story we are going to tell you today. A story that reveals just how above the law enforcement really is. It's part of a political and cultural phenomena that has created the two-tiered criminal justice system we've called out before. But this dual system of leniency for some and cruelty for others is not enforced simply by dictate. No. As we will see today, it is in part the result of the powerful tools of rhetoric that, along with the complicity of mainstream media, tells a story that justifies the stark imbalance of American policing and makes a style of unjust justice possible. Remember, as the Greek philosopher Aristotle once said, rhetoric is the process of making the worse appear the better cause. But in the realm of policing and law enforcement, that concept has been turned into a narrative akin to a religion. And what is the impact of this rhetoric on the psyche of our country? Let's examine the past to understand the present. As we all know, one of the most pernicious policies in this country has been the war on drugs. For decades, police used the pretext of drug crimes to initiate illegal arrests, seize property, and disrupt poor communities. Stephen, we've discussed the special psychology of the war on drugs, but it's also bolstered by a mythology, isn't it?
Well, yeah, the mythology of the war on drugs is a mythology of the perniciousness of the object. You know, that possession of an object somehow was comported an entire spectrum of some sort of, you know, force or some sort of evil or in many ways the racialized animosity or the animosity of the other, but a lot of, and the animosity against the poor. And that object allowed the police to basically circumvent the civil rights of almost all of us. And of course, against that was the narrative that you saw in media and you saw in Hollywood films and everything, that the impediment to somehow taming that object and the people who possessed it were the civil rights that had been granted to us through the Constitution of the United States. It was a dual sort of narrative that said, on the one hand, embodying this object and a proximity to it is evil, and on the other hand, the only way to extinguish it is to violate the principles that this country was founded on. So it was really a way to make policing sort of the prime narrator of why some people weren't deserving of political agency.
Right. It reminds me of that saying that someone who's willing to deny liberty for the sake of security deserves neither.
Yeah.
So this constant reiteration that conditions like poverty, addiction, and general malaise are the byproducts of a moral or personal failure, while untrue, needs a social agent to make it real. And that agent, as Stephen discussed, is policing. Policing is the myth-making machine that equates poverty with moral failure, and inequity is a byproduct of productive capitalism. Think about it. How else could a government agency take billions of dollars of property without due process, or take the freedom of tens of millions of people because they possess a substance, or shoot and kill us over a car stop?
How can these injustices be sustained without the rhetoric that accompanies it? The idea that police are in an existential struggle and under threat. It's a narrative that has assembled one illegal arrest at a time. And of course, to drive this point home even further, we have a story that reveals the true imperative of the so-called justice system, how it protects those who enforce it, and how the so-called tough on crime laws aren't predicated upon justice, but they are there to create a potent scarlet letter to wield against the victims of governmental overreach and neglect. Case in point is a police misconduct story we referenced before, the conviction and sentencing of Baltimore police officer Michael Gentile. Gentile was convicted of using a handgun in the commission of a felony when he pointed a gun at our guest, Kayvon Miller, and we will let Mr. Miller tell the story, not just about the crime itself, but what happened when it was time to mete out justice. Kayvon, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So first, just tell us about your encounter with Officer Gentile. What happened?
Well, on the night in question, I was...
Okay, to make a long story short, this guy got nailed, and then when it came up for appeal, he got house arrest while out on appeal and credit for time served while he was under house arrest. And it's just totally screwed the way they coddle these cops. But I want to talk about how, you know, I was thrown in jail for something I didn't do because they didn't like what I had to say. And I've sent an email to them telling my whole story. And I was trying to find... but they don't have it out right now on the front of my page. They're supposed to. Okay, so I'll play you this video, and I'm sure that you're going to say, well, I shouldn't have said what I said and all this, but understand, I was acting as a journalist, and I wasn't talking to them. I didn't realize they were recording me. And what I'm saying about this is, I know there's a lot of people who have a lot worse stories to tell than mine, but when you don't care about people like me, you're just opening up the door for all the rest. I mean, hi, this is Martin Drummond with Progressive News, and it is Thursday, September 5th, 2019, and I'm going to let you listen to a video, watch a video, and it's of, I'm on the phone with the food stamp people, the SNAP. And I'm kind of setting you up here because I'm going to tell you that I was on the phone with them, which I was, but I'd been placed on hold, and I didn't think that I was being recorded or listened to at all. But I'm going to let you think that I was just talking to them in the beginning because I want to make a point. Okay. And what I'm trying to explain to them is that if they keep on like frustrating people and getting people angry, like trying to frustrate them out of their food stamps, like make it so difficult that they just walk away, right? That sooner or later, you know, they're tempting fate. That they piss off enough people, sooner or later somebody's going to come in, shoot somebody, or blow the place up, right? So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to convince them of the fact that they're doing that they're pissing people off so bad that they're tempting fate. They're what do you call it? You know, they're inviting an attack by making people so angry like this. And I'm going to use myself as an example. I had lots of examples of people who I talked to, bunches of them. I mean, at least 6, you know. So, you know, I was just speaking off the cuff, so I decided to just use myself and say how they make me feel. So here's So I was here less than a month ago. I was here on the 14th of September. They didn't say anything to me about closing that office. And it's empty. I mean, it's emptied out. Completely empty. These people, whether it's the Republican governor or them or whoever, they're just obnoxious, man. All the little shit that they pull to make it hard for people to get their business done with, you know, we're all dependent upon food stamps for food, you know, those of us who are. You know, when you threaten somebody's food, you really fuck with them mentally, and they're going to get pissed off. Somebody's going to do something heinous. I feel like doing something. You know, I'd love to kill one of them, or blow one of them up, if I could find out who's responsible, because it's just total disregard. Now, I would never do that, and maybe I'm weak because of that, but first of all, and let me be clear here, what I'm trying to do is prove that that they're pissing people off so bad that somebody's going to come in there and shoot one of them or do something, you know. And I know that's already happened now since I went to court, because the guy who was after me said that his job was created after a guy beat somebody to death in one of the offices. But I'm not, the main thing is I'm not talking about like an ongoing thing where you feel like killing somebody and you know, it just goes on and you're constantly thinking about it. All I'm talking about is that instance when somebody does something to you degrading. And I think everybody, when they're in that situation, a lot of people don't have to face those situations, but we do, you know, most of us. And when you face that situation, for a while you just rage, right? And I'm trying to describe that rage and say that it happens constantly when dealing with, you know, the police or whoever. And that it's, for me anyway, it's just something that happens instantaneous and you have no control of. And you immediately start, you know, calming yourself down and being reasonable and telling yourself, well, no, I'm not going to do that. But, you know, they're taking this as a direct threat to them. They were recording me at the time, and I had no idea they were recording. And I was working on a piece, so I was acting as a journalist. So I'm also protected. I mean, not only freedom of speech, not only privacy, but I'm also protected as a journalist doing a story, because that's what I'm doing right here. I'm working on a story that I've thought a lot about over the years, and I'm still kind of working on it, but I've pretty much got it figured out, and I'm just kind of cobbling it together right here. Well, I'm not suicidal. Second of all, well, no, first of all, I believe in, even when dealing with bad people. I don't know though, man, you know, war is war. And these people, they declare war upon people like me every day. So I guess what it comes down to is when I decide and when other people decide that it's war, you know, it's simply war.
And what I'm talking about there is what you see in all these videos that I've been showing you, is how they've declared war on us and how they're warring upon us in all the various ways. The homelessness, the way that the system is set up to just kind of screw you over all the time.
War. It's simply a civil war. The rich are, you know, and I've said it many times that people need to get out and vote against the rich because they don't and that they don't do it because they don't realize they're in a war. I guess the reason I don't do something really heinous is because I keep hoping that there's some kind of, you know, a better alternative, an alternative to, and I won't end up dead.
But you have to wonder, is there an alternative to, you know, I see every day people posting pictures of guillotines and stuff like that. And it makes you wonder, you know, are they right? Is that what it's going to take? Because I'd hate to see my country end up like Lebanon, where I was in 1975, and I saw a civil war. And Lebanon's on the brink of civil war again because they won't face the problems.
I go to war with these people, it'll be with 100, 200 million other people like me. And we'll do it swift and get it over with very quickly. And they better hope that it doesn't come to that. Because if it does, they may think that they're smart, but they'll find themselves on the losing end of that battle.
So basically, by railroading me into jail, they said I have no right to discuss this. You know, and I'm the most pacific person they'll ever meet. The most obliging, you know.
And apparently this bitch is hung up on me. No? Hello? Hello? Well, she hung up on me.
Okay, so that was me trying to explain to you, actually, how what they're doing is going to get them, is going to generate a reaction from people who are angry at how they're being treated. Now, I told you I was on the phone with her, but in fact, she had put me on hold. And I wasn't talking to her. I was making a video for Progressive News. I was working on a video. I was actually working on, you know, a rough idea of what I wanted to do. I wanted to say that, you know, these government people are making, so I'm basically saying that the shooters are caused by these government officials. And I would bet some of them are. You know, that some of the people who have gone on shooting rampages have had problems with the government and government officials, mainly in red states like here where I am in Kentucky. And they've just gotten to the point where they're at their wits' end, you know? Now, I wasn't actually talking to her. I was put on hold. And I'll let you hear that, and it's back. It's about 3 minutes after she put me on hold that I started talking. It might take a second for the audio to kick in. That's where I'm at, I think. Suite 160. Now, that clock is actually off, but it does give you the minutes, so. But I didn't hear her say I'd have to hold on, but I know she did. So let's go back again. So she puts me on hold, and all this time goes by. That's where I'm at, I think. Suite 160. Okay, yeah, that's it. So she says, hold on just a minute. Right there. And at that point, you know, I'm driving and it's like 4 minutes before I start talking. Now, don't you think that if I wanted her to hear this, that I would have made sure she was on the line? You know, I didn't say like, hello, and get her attention and make sure she was listening. And even in their testimony, they said that they'd put me on hold. She said that while you're on hold, they can still hear what you're saying. And so, I mean, I'm talking to my car cam here and making a video. So on top of everything else, I'm not even talking to her. It wasn't meant for her ears. I thought I was, with my making my recording. I didn't realize that they were recording it. So, they end up throwing me in jail. I was sentenced to 3 months.
And you'll see me take the car cam off the back seat, which is setting on right now, and move it to the holder that it has. And that's because I decided I wanted to work on the story. And I looked around for the car cam because I didn't know where it was. I'd forgotten I'd put it on the back seat because I don't like it in view when there's lots of poor people around, because somebody might break my window and try and steal it. And even though they don't know, it's a cheap little $15 car cam that I bought from China, So, I'm looking around for it to do my story, and I put it in the window so I could be sure that it heard me right.
And I went and served it. But I'm clearly not guilty. I mean, it's not illegal to explain to somebody how somebody else makes you feel. So, and that's all that I'm doing. I'm trying to prove that they make other people so angry that somebody's going to want to shoot somebody or attack them, right? I mean, it's that simple. Now they can't do this.
See, because by silencing me, they're either doing that to other people all over the place, which I'm sure they are, but they're setting a precedent, a legal precedent. So if you're caught saying stuff that they can hear, even though it wasn't meant for them, and then they can throw you in jail now, simply for expressing certain feelings, that you get.
I mean, if they do this, then anybody who says they make you so angry that you feel like committing a crime, then technically you go to jail. I mean, they sent me to jail for that.
And by not protecting me, I mean, I've got no horse in this race. I don't really care that they fucked me over. But by successfully prosecuting me and showing me how easy it is, because they know they're juries, and they know they can just slide this one right through, then they're telling everybody who talks anything like this that, oh, we've got a way through terroristic threatening laws to put you in jail. Now, I see people talking like this all the time, but if they're being macho, or they're like Chris Cuomo threatening to throw that guy down the stairs, do they get prosecuted for that? Does Joe Biden get prosecuted for talking about how, we settled things like men back then? No, none of them get prosecuted, and nobody who is talking about, machoism, none of them ever get prosecuted, even though they're a million times more guilty under this terroristic threatening laws than I am.
Because that's basically what I'm doing. I'm saying that, they make me so angry that I feel like I'd love to. Those are all feelings. Those are all examples of how they make you feel. That's not the same as saying that I'm going to do them. So, and to sentence somebody to 3 months in jail because they say they feel that somebody makes them feel that way, and that's something that happens so fast. I mean, you feel that anger like you want to kill somebody just so quick, and of course the person who doesn't have the defense mechanism, I mean, you feel it real quick. You feel, and you catch yourself saying to yourself, God, I'd like to kill that motherfucker. And then you go, whatever. You can't. I mean, I've never done it in my whole life, so that's proof right there that. And there's all kinds of indications that I'm not speaking to her. For one thing, I wouldn't speak to her about anything like this, and I wouldn't say, harsh things or swear words or whatever. I mean, there's nothing about this conversation. They're too used to talking to crazy people on the phone, that they think that I'm, and they're accusing me of being that crazy, that I would say that to her on the phone. No. If I wanted to talk about, if I wanted to get up in their face, I'd do it right to their face. I mean, and I don't mind, if one of them wants to talk to me about how angry they make me, and the things that they've done to me, because they're really horrendous. You know, I mean, they've tried to humiliate me in front of people there. They've kept me.
I'll tell you what, you know, the month before when I was there, and by the way, they sent me a letter saying I didn't qualify for food stamps and told me to come in that day, and it turned out to be nonsense. You know, they repeatedly send me these letters. And the month before, when I did come in for my interview, I'm waiting outside, and I'm the first person in line because I often get there early because I don't want to be the last person to get seen. And I'm standing at the front door, and all these people are lined up behind me, and then some idiots line up in front of me, but on the other side of the door, like, oh, it's okay to form two lines even though you came last, you know. I mean, that's basically, you know how people are. So now I'm scrunched in, people in front of me and people behind me, and my back hurts, so I'm leaning up against the door because there's a bar that goes across the door or door handles, and I can lean up against them and ease the tension on my back. Well, some black girl who I didn't know she worked there, she just comes walking up and she just gets right in my face and just stares at me. And I'm like, wow, this bitch is crazy, right? And I go, you want something? And she goes, I have to get in the door. And so I back everybody up and back up till I'm not in front of the door anymore on my side, you know, where everybody lined up. And not in, only one side of the door opens. I'm on the other door, backed up far enough for her. And she gets in the door and knocks on the window. And there's a black guy who's always at this desk, this old black guy. He's always at the desk. He probably still works there. And you have to come in and get a piece of paper from him and fill it out and stuff. And he comes and he lets her in. Well, she gives him an earful about me. Like I did anything bad, you know? So when he comes out to open the door at 8 o'clock, he says, everybody just wait a minute. I want to congratulate this gentleman on finding a new way to stand in line, and makes everybody stand there and listen to his bullshit. And he's trying to, you know, make it funny. But what he's trying to do is humiliate me in front of all these people. And I can even hear people in line going, oh, people you got to deal with. And they're talking about me. So, you know, just for being first in line and for doing everything I could to accommodate her, I get this jackass, you know, and I don't really think too much of it. I'm like, oh, the bitch who's talking about how I'm an asshole, basically. Who cares what she thinks, right? I mean, she's just some dumbass bitch who wants to fit in and, you know, kiss ass and stuff like that. But she's also trying to, you know, say things about me to other people, like maybe she can get them to agree with her. Anyway, we all go in and da-da-da. But then once I'm in, I go to the interview, and I had the exact same thing happen to me as what I'm talking about here. This guy is telling me, this is in the actual interview, this isn't to do with the letters and stuff, that I don't qualify. And why? And I'd had this problem several times before, because at some point I got this income, $245, right? And, you know, I'm not lying. I came in and said I got making $245, but they're saying that they want documentation, right? So I bring in all these different things, receipts from MoneyGrams, and they're wanting something else but they don't tell me what it is. They just keep telling me, well, this won't do it. You won't get your food stamps. And this interview went on for forever. And whenever I'd ask him, well, what do you want? What do you want from me? He would say, I don't know, but you're not qualified for food stamps. So I have no idea what he wants. And you know, I don't know, weeks later, I talked to a girl on the phone, and she says, well, you need to get the person who's paying you the $245 a month to write you a little note saying, I receive I give $245 a month to Martin Drummond for or on a monthly basis. That's all he had to tell me. But he refused to tell me that. You can't tell me that he doesn't know. I mean, he's an expert, right? He's the one who's talking to people who come in. So, and that's just one of, there's all kind of online. They shut down their site on the 28th of the month, and that's when everybody's trying to upload their documents, and then don't open it back up. Don't come out. I mean, that's just crazy until after the 1st, which makes you, in default. It's like you got to start all over. There's just a million ways. And in fact, one of the stories that I could have told for this this piece that I'm working on is a guy that I met, and this goes to show how many people they're pissing off, because I just ran into this guy in a bar watching a band that I like, and he tells me about how he's calling the food stamp people. He says, I'm never going to try and get food stamps again. And I'm like asking him why and everything. And he's saying, well, they start asking me about dependents. And they don't really explain to me, I'm quoting him, right, how it works or anything. But no matter what I say, they're trying to tell me that I can't qualify because of dependents. And they're asking me about my daughter who's grown up now and who lives in the house and all this stuff. Well, I know now because I've been through this too recently. All you have to do is get a letter from a neighbor or something saying that whoever's living in the house with you is completely separate, that you guys don't eat, that she's not eating your food that you're getting from food stamps, because they're just like all paranoid about what you do with the food that you buy. And of course they're all paranoid about people selling their food to get money to buy drugs and all this kind of stuff, or whatever, right? You can't sell your food to get money to do anything, So anyway, so he said, I just gave up. And he said, but the thing is if that guy who he was talking to, if he were to get out of a car in this parking lot we were standing out back right now, I'd probably kill him. That's what he said. And I was like, man, because I was going through my experience. I told him about how I'd been charged with this. And I said, you need to be careful, because they're like going nuts over this stuff. And he said, well, no, but what happened was he was sitting on the phone with them one day, because you end up on the phone and going in and on the phone and going in and on the phone. And he said that he got so frustrated with the person on the phone, which was obviously a different person than who he talked to in person, but that he said, and people say this all the time, well, I might as well just go shoot myself. Okay, so this is funny. It's like I was saying about lamestream media. It's so utterly frustrating and pathetic that all you can do is laugh about it. Like 20 minutes later, cops show up at his door, and he said, I never should have let them in. But they asked if they could come in, and he let them in because he thought he had nothing to hide, right? He didn't even have any idea what they were there for. And they said, well, did you tell the person on the phone that you wanted to shoot yourself? And he was like, well, yeah, but it was just a joke because he was frustrating me so bad that I said, you know, that's just a saying. And he said, well, is that a drink on your table? And he said, yeah, I'm sitting here at home. I'm having a drink. So what? And he said, okay, well, listen, we're going to arrest you for being suicidal. And they handcuff him and they take him downtown. And while they've got him downtown, they make him blow a test. And yeah, he's drunk, you know, at least a little bit. And he tests positive. And now he's not in his house. So they charge him with public intoxication. Can you imagine? They drag him out of his house and downtown while he's drunk in his house, and then charge him with public intoxication. Now, you think this guy isn't a little bit pissed off? You know, and he's poor because he lost his job. He said he was working at KET in the video department, pretty important person. And he was also furious with the people at KET who fired him and all this stuff. But you think he's got money to pay for all this stuff? So now he's got to fight a suicidal thing. And they can throw in, remember how in the beginning of the show we were talking about people who get thrown in jail for drugs and obviously for mental problems and stuff. So now he's got to fight that with no money. Or very little, I don't know. I don't know him personally. I don't even remember who he was really. But I remember the story very well because what a story, right? And public intoxication. I mean, is that a perfect example of how our system makes a bad situation worse? Like kicking people while they're down and stuff. I mean, to me, that's just like the ultimate. In an interview, and they kept telling, but if you let them do this to me, you know, don't bitch at me when they come for you, you know. When they came for the Jews, I said nothing because, or did nothing because da-da-da. Man, they came for me and got me, and I screamed at the top of my lungs. I've made this video, and I made a previous video, and I posted all around Facebook, and all my Facebook friends are supposedly progressives. Well, you don't care that people here and there, and it's just a setup. It's just a setup for you. You know, some of you, I guarantee you, will face a situation like this and will get railroaded right into jail. And then all of a sudden, you'll care about yourselves. But maybe you should have cared a little more about poor little Martin Drummond when they dragged him off to jail.
Telling me that I wasn't qualified, and they wouldn't tell me what I needed to do to qualify. They kept letting me try and give them something that would make me qualified, and then they told me, no, that's not good enough, and not tell me what they wanted. There's just, you know, I mean, there's just the phone situation, you know, where you call in like for 3 days and you get nothing but we're not answering the phones right now. You have at the 29th of the month, as I'm trying to upload stuff, they say they're doing server maintenance, and then they don't come up until after the 1st, which means now I'm late. You know, I mean, there's just, when I talk about the little shit that they pull, I'm talking about stuff like that, okay? And I don't care if they know that it makes me angry for a few minutes, so angry that, you know, I'm just like thinking how I'd love to kill one of them at that point. You know, they're lucky that I'm a person who has a defense mechanism against that. I say, okay, no, that's not an option. I mean, clearly it is an option. Anything that you could do is an option, right? Look at the American government, the U.S. government. You know, this idiot in the White House says all options are on the table. He's talking about killing hundreds, thousands, possibly millions of people. All options are on the table. No. That killing somebody at the DCBS is not on the table. It would have to putting me in jail. That certainly brings that option closer. But I'll tell you what, I believe that people get what they deserve in the end, and that some people like me get things that they don't deserve, like being thrown in jail. But these people will get what they deserve. You'll see. Something will happen. Maybe I won't even know about it, but I just know because I've lived nearly 59 years now, and I've seen it happen over and over again, you know. And, you know, I mean, I'm not saying I couldn't get revenge, you know, but there's some things like out of the Bible that I do believe, even though I think that the Bible is pretty much bullshit. But even in something like that's bullshit, there's going to be some, and this is from the Bible, and that's that vengeance is, you know, that's God's area. And although I don't believe in a God like they do, but there is a balance, and when you're wronged like severely, it always comes back into balance, and this will too. Okay, so this is Martin Drummond with Progressive News, and thanks for watching. Feel like committing a crime. Nearly 59 years now, and I've seen it happen over and over again, you know.
Well, that wasn't exactly the video I was thinking of. It was a lot longer, actually. But in the other video I explained, you know, exactly why I'm innocent, but I didn't go into that in this video. So fortunately, people like this show more about what it's about. I'm wondering what happened to Wondering if I'm even really live right now. Let me look around here real quick and see what's going on. This should really show me as being live right now. And it doesn't, so I'm wondering if I'm even live. Probably not. Probably not. Oh, looks like I'm live twice. Well, let's let's go look. Let's open up both of these. Open up both of these and see what's going on. Started screaming. Probably not. Yeah, I am live. Okay, well that's good. Except for there's like I'm live only twice. One person watching, and I think that's me. Well, let's open up both of these and see what's going on. Started screaming. Probably not. Okay, so I'm definitely live, probably twice, and I'm not really sure how to stop it. This one obviously started afterwards. I find this all fascinating. Definitely, but I know it's frustrated to anybody who's listening. And how to stop it. This one obviously started out. Let's see. How about if I go here? Because this is where they're created. This is an old one. Manage. So these two are live right now. Definitely would like to shut one of them down. Probably the first one. How do you shut them down? Don't really want to delete it. But I would like to end one of the streams. Does not really give me an option. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to end this stream, the first one. Alright, so I'm still live with this one. And we're going to carry on. Alright, so I'm still live. Gonna move this down here and open up this one. And we talked about that. Let's talk about this is really just to show how you can improve things with social spending. And what we found out through studies is that the more social spending that you do, like preventative type stuff like opiate crisis and stuff like that, the less you spend on policing and incarceration. So it pays for itself over and over again.
Get a Mr. Cool DIY unit and save yourself hundreds of dollars in energy costs and home renovation. Cool any room you want in the summer, and you can...
Jacob Rees-Mogg, if regarded as fictional, a perfectly enjoyable character, but the fact that Jacob Rees-Mogg is a real person in the real world talking about real issues, i.e. Grenfell, causes constant consternation and in this instance conflagration. I'm of course referring to Rees-Mogg's comments that
all I'm trying to point out here is that, you know, the source of all this turmoil and despair and poverty and stuff is caused by us not taking care of our own people.
Over the past decade, we've been getting dumber by watching smart things, like this smartphone or this smart TV, this smart guy or this smart ass. And now we can add the use of privacy-deficient smart home devices like Amazon's Alexa or Google Home to that list. Ultimately, the decision to buy something that can tell you how many miles per hour you shit is a choice you made. But many American renters aren't getting that choice. That's because landlords and management companies across the country are forcing residents into using smart home features that they never asked for.
Some new apartments require renters to use Amazon smart home devices. A group called the Amazon Smart Properties team is working with property managers to...
I'm sure you're familiar with the fact that Amazon's owner, what's his dipshit name, is working with the NSA, CIA, whatever, Pentagon. And, you know, all this stuff being developed by Google and stuff for face recognition and, you know, these doorbells that hook right up to the police department. So, you know, this all fits together. All of this, like, surveillance and everything fits together with the what is it called, the legalization of poverty and stuff. And you know, when I said before, if you're a hammer all you see is nails, and these guys think that the solution to all of our problems is simply to get their boot on our neck, you know? And they're doing it in such a variety of sneaky.
Equip new buildings with Alexa smart speakers.
Questions remain. How much do we want companies to know about our private lives?
Kind of makes me